And welcome everyone to today's Synergist webinar, Six Emerging Technology Trends Reshaping Ergonomics and OEHS. I'm Kay Bechtold, Managing Editor of the Synergist, the magazine of AIHA. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today, and especially Velocity EHS for sponsoring this webinar. Today's speakers are Blake McGowan and Jacqueline Faraci. Blake is Head of Product Marketing and Senior Principal Ergonomics Technical Fellow at Velocity EHS, with more than 25 years of experience helping global manufacturing organizations design, deploy, and sustain formalized ergonomics programs that achieve best-in-class performance. Jacqueline is a Senior Solutions Consultant at Velocity EHS, where she provides technical and scientific expertise to support the sales and product teams, helping organizations worldwide enhance their EHS and ESG processes. And now I'll turn the presentation over to Blake and Jacqueline.
Great, wonderful. Play screen share. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, I guess I go over here, share here. And if Jacqueline, can you confirm that you see my screen?
I can't see your screen.
Okay, there we go. I got to press the button. That's why.
There we go.
There you go.
Sounds loaded.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for that introduction, Kay. And I'm super happy today for today's session because I get to do this with Jacqueline. And Jacqueline is an amazing resource that will help us during the session as well during the Q&A. So please share your questions in the Q&A. We'll have lots of time for that. Um, as mentioned, today's session is the six emerging technologies for that are shaping really the EHS space. And I think this is a really important topic for everyone. There's probably way more than six, maybe even seven. Just for those of you that have young children out there, the six, seven keeps living on. We're going to talk about six of them today. So I think this is a really important topic. The second reason I'm excited is there's lots of people that I know that are on the call. I got a shout out today from Raquel here in Ann Arbor and other friends from Toronto hitting both of my kind of hometown. So this is a great session. So please feel free to be engaged, ask questions. We may even stop halfway through to address a few questions, but please keep those coming. Jacqueline and Kay will monitor those. Okay, close this out for a second. All right, so our agenda today is pretty straightforward. You know, I remember the days when I started in the space in the 1990s, like when everything was done on pieces of paper. I still remember collecting my first data where it showed, all of the oil stains on my piece of paper. I took photographs of assessments using actual cameras that I'd have to go down to the pharmacy to get developed, and a few days later, we would tape those photos onto a piece of paper and submit a report on, quantifying the risk associated with a particular set of occupational tasks. And then we transition into some desktop softwares and utilizing Excels and spreadsheets like that. Now we've transitioned even beyond the cloud-based systems to all types of technologies out there, wearables, sensors, computer vision, etc. So I want to share these and give you my perspective of what I feel is important. Now, the space is changing a lot, and I think I had to share these slides maybe 3 months ago, and I'm sure some of these concepts might be slightly updated since then. So please feel free to share your thoughts. Really, the whole purpose of this is to make sure that you can gain some insights that you can take back to your business leaders with regard to things like the benefits of these technologies, opportunities, challenges, as well as potential risks. And then how to position these to make sure that your job is as effective and as efficient as possible. So, all right, so I'm going to first start off with what I feel are probably the three biggest trends in the space, the OEHS space or the EHS space, before we dive into the six technology trends, just to kind of give you a perception of like the lens in which I'm hearing the world is looking at this space, and then maybe even ask you to think of what you think might be the fourth or fifth, or if you even do consider something else to be a bigger trend. So I think one of the biggest ones that I've been hearing, especially with the larger organizations that have more of a corporate structure with multiple different people, backgrounds with lots of experience, there's definitely this trend away from managing, just the normal injuries and illnesses and really focusing on those serious injuries and fatalities. And some data, some surveys have now shown that, roughly 40% of organizations see this as its number one issue. And I can understand why. We're seeing pretty flat lines with injury and illnesses, but SIFs continue to go up. They have huge economic as well as societal impacts on the worker and workplaces. So I think this trend is only going to continue over the years. The second one, trying to get away from this pure mechanical way of looking at health and safety. Here's a dose response, and going into a more holistic approach when we're starting to think about how does this truly impact all of the elements of worker well-being. Again, we've always focused on those physical, chemical, biological, those types of things for many years. We've got a good handle on some of those. But now we're starting to enter into the mental health side. As an ergonomist, and that's the way I look at a lot of these EHS trends, is from an ergonomics perspective. For many, many years, we had good data that said about 30 to 40% of all MSTs are due to biomechanical factors, or those physical risk factors, and 60 to 70% are actually due to those psychosocial factors. And we've done a good job managing those physical ones, and there's a huge open space to start addressing those well-being, psychosocial, or even mental health issues related to work, and really broadening this out from, I guess I would say, risk reduction and injury prevention to really promoting worker well-being and optimizing performance. Just a quick story, like when I was over in Europe last year, I was having some discussions and I made this really huge breakthrough on my perspective. I was always talking about risk reduction, risk reduction, risk reduction. And they said, that's a very US centric view of health and safety. And I said, well, what do you mean? They said, over here in Europe, we're all about trying to optimize performance of people, and we want to give them enough risk so they can be healthy. And eliminating risk, isn't the best approach. And I was like, oh, that's a really unique perspective. And they call it the Goldilocks approach, making sure you have just the right amount of, physical and mental stress in the job to keep you resilient. So I thought that was fairly interesting and something to bring back to the US. And then the third one, technology. All right. So this is a big, big initiative, I think, within our organizations. I hear this a lot from people in the space. Probably the most common question I get from people is, our board of directors, our executives, our C-suite, my boss told me to go get AI to go solve some problems. And that's probably a starting point for a lot of people, might not be the best starting point, but everyone's looking at technologies to give you better insights, faster data collection, understanding the data that's out in front of you so that you can be more effective and more efficient. There's a couple of things that are absolutely needed to ensure that you utilize this technology the best you can. And I'll touch on those right here. There's four that really come to my mind. Like, you really have to have a strategy when you start to deploy technology. Okay. You have to make sure it's just not a project that you're doing because someone's asking you to do it, or just a pilot project to test if something works or doesn't. You have to follow that, really academic process, that research process of like, what are the key problems that we have in the organization? And are there different technologies that could help us address the root causes of those problems? Rather than saying, oh, there's a really nice shiny piece of technology out there. Where could I possibly use it? Okay, so just starting to be a little bit more strategic around how we deploy these. The second one, there's nothing better in the world than technology to quickly tell you and your organization that you have poor data. It is the fastest way to confirm to everyone within your organization that you didn't have a process, you have a mix of poor data. And great examples of this are, just take a smaller size organization, 10 buildings, 10 locations. It really doesn't matter. They might have 10 different policies on something. Maybe in one country it states A, and in another country it's A plus B. And that mix of data and standards makes it really, really hard for technology to give you good answers. It's going to quickly tell you that you don't have good data. And from an MSD risk reduction perspective, again, through the lens of what I'm most familiar with, if you got 10 locations and two are using a standardized set of tools, two others are using a local set of tools, two others are using a qualitative tool they made in-house, two others are not doing anything, and two others are doing something completely against what you believe. There's no way for you to collect all this data to then get a story that you can tell with your business decision makers. The third one is you have to have a process, otherwise technology is going to fail. Okay. It is going to identify all of the errors that you have. And something I recommend when people want to deploy technology is you have to have a process for your initiative. Most people have a safety process, chemical process, all those things, but it has to extend beyond that. And then lastly, the fourth one, when deploying technology, you have to have your people on board. If they don't want to use it, it's not going to give you any value at all. So the three trends again that I'm seeing is the importance and the prioritization as SIFs as a primary thing to address. Second being the inclusion of well-being into your EHS initiatives, and lastly the focus on technology. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I kind of set this up this way so that we understand those three things. And technology is one of the top three things that businesses are thinking about, and giving you some understanding of what you really need before you go down that path. Now, again, another level set. I do host a coffee chat on a monthly basis. I think the next one is tomorrow, where we bring in people that are experts in EHS as well as technology. And when I poll individuals, and we've got maybe up to 500 people that attend these types of coffee talks, coffee chats, is they say at 1 to 3, they are a one. They are complete novices. They're not sure what AI stands for or how to spell it at times. Very few people feel really, really comfortable. So some fundamentals here. When we talk about AI, it really needs to be able to take that. Oh, sorry, I was on the wrong slide here. There's three different types of AI that I want to make sure that you understand. So if it's some type of technology and artificial intelligence that allows you to see and recognize something, we classify that as computer vision. All right, so there's computer vision in construction, there's computer vision in ergonomics. All across the board, we see things like computer vision. Another one, if it's something that finds patterns in data, we call that data analytics, completely different than computer vision. The third one is machine learning. If it can actually generate some type of recommended actions, that is something that we call machine learning. So from my perspective in the ergonomics world, the computer vision helps us actually identify MSD risk factors. We have computer vision that videotapes the employee. We put a skeleton on top of that individual. It then generates data, puts it through a risk assessment, and then you can get an overall MSD risk score. Data analytics on the back end allows you to analyze your risk data to help you determine where your problems are. And then the machine learning is stuff that allows you to help you understand root causes or improvements for a particular issue. All right. So big picture AI is something that can enhance your judgment. It absolutely does not replace it. I see this a lot of times. Someone will write me a report, send it to me, and I'll say, well, walk me through it. What did you say? And they struggle. I see this quite a bit. As I said here, don't outsource you can outsource your task, but not your critical thinking. All right. So now with regards to with that setup, um, there are six trends that I think are really, really important that we want to go through. So big picture, I'm going to talk about each of these six trends, probably 2 to 3 minutes each. So please set aside your questions, send them into the chat, and we can go from there. Right. The first one I call is the AI agent or assistant that can help you actually conduct some work, right? So I think that's the first one. The one, and number two is what I call learn. All right, so it allows you to learn some unique insight or foresight based on the data that you had. By crunching all that data, it might uncover something that you never thought had a connection or probably would have never found effectively or efficiently. Number three is C, that's computer vision I talked to, using technologies to help you understand where accidents are happening within your facility or how to conduct an MSD risk assessment or doing anything that will give you maybe even leak checks on a pipe. Copy is the digital twins, creating another environment that helps you mimic. This is incredibly important in process environments when you're trying to do accident predictions or understanding risk within your organizations. Having a digital twin model will help you through that. Number five is connected. Any type of connection where people are wearing something, autonomous data collection out in the field, connected worker technologies, heart rate monitors, location monitors, all those types of things can help you understand the risk profile to your employees. And the last thing is anything to do with control of work. We see a lot of accidents related to control of work, so a lot of organizations are focusing in on that. Okay. All right, so let's get into trend number one. And again, for a good definition, we have this on the left-hand side, and I'll just read this out. Really, an AI agents or assistants are intelligent systems that complete tasks that are, important to you on their own and interact with humans to solve a problem. It may be something as simple as an internal homegrown, system where it has all your different standards inside of it and say, hey, we've got 10 locations. I'm at location A. What is the standard for a particular chemical in this environment? Or, what is the threshold that we're using? And does that threshold differ from any other 9 locations? And is there a reason because there's a local or state or country law associated with that? So it just helps you perform a task. Something very simple where in the past you would have to have access to all those documents. If you're in the office, that would be fine. If you were out in the facility, it might be more difficult, but allows you to get access to the information that's already there. And getting back to the point I made earlier, it's really important that you have your good data. And what we start to find with organizations that are using these types of AI agents, it is uncovering all types of gaps and identifying all types of contradictory pieces of information. You might have a standard that's a year old or 2 years old, and if you've got 10 locations, 4 of the different standards do not align with the overall standard. And when people weren't able to see or to look through it, as an individual, you were able to accommodate that and kind of massage the answer to the question from your business stakeholder. Now it gives you the exact answer in multiple different ways. So we have to be aware of that. So really the drivers behind this first trend of performing activities is to really reduce the workload. I don't think there's many organizations that are hiring more EHS professionals to do the job. They're staying the same or going down, and there's definitely a trend for more and more EHS professionals, especially IHs, retiring. So we need to reduce the workload on those few people and increase their overall efficiency in order to get the work done. Benefits, let's try and automate the simple and compliance related, reporting related things. The problem here is it just leaves all of the complex tasks for you as an EHS professional. I think this is one of the biggest challenges in our field or even in society related to work is as we automate the simple, we leave the hard for the human. All right, opportunities, obviously work integrating this into your workflows, your standardized work process, all types of challenges with regards to these AI agents, hallucinations, or do you truly believe it's giving you the right answer? Data governance is a big issue. And I think at this point in time, professionals like those of you on the call who have 20 or 25 or 30 years of experience, when you see something come back, you automatically know if there's an error. Okay. I tried to do a presentation a while ago using AI, and it was about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years, and it was like 90% of it I couldn't use. I was like, this just doesn't, meet my needs. But as people start to retire and as people get less and less repetitions in their field, it's going to be harder and harder for them to trust the data or to evaluate that data. And again, here the biggest risk is really just the over reliance on this type of information without stopping and critically thinking. So I think that's one of the biggest dangers in this area. So if you have any questions related to this particular trend, maybe write the number one, put it in the Q&A section. Any particular drivers, any insights, please feel free to add any information there. Okay. Okay. Oops, I went over the wrong spot here. Exit. All right. All right. Number two, learn. All right, so any type of AI technology that helps you to better learn about the data that you have, giving you some level of insight that was hard to glean before. Maybe you were able to do this at a site level, but now you're able to do it at an enterprise level just due to scale, or give you some type of foresight to predict the future. I think this is where a lot of people want to go. Again, it really highly depends on the quality of your data and your processes. But when we talk about this, it's any type of machine learning or NLP driven tools. We can use this to cleanse data. We can use it to organize data. There's all different ways you can utilize this information to analyze your EHS data. All right. So one thing you may want to do is like, can you look through these 10 standards and tell me all the ways that they differ? And what are my top 10, discrepancies within this? And how would you recommend that we fix them? That might be an example of the learn portion. Or looking over data over the last 25 years at this location, what have been the biggest missed opportunities? Where have we been lagging and making improvements? Is there any particular reason? Does it connect any of our data from operational standpoint? Does it connect anything to do with tenure or culture issues? And you can really lean into using this to learn more information about your facility, not for the sake of learning about your facility. It's in order to ask a good question that will help you address a problem. I think too many times we just generate data because we have never generated it before. But let's start with a question, like why do we want to know this piece of information? If I knew the answer to this question, what would I do? And I think that's where we want to look. So looking at this trend across the horizontal at the bottom, one of the things it does, like this learn portion, this learn trend, just speeds up data management, right? So we might have, an internal data set. We might have a cloud-based software solution. We have a whole bunch of assessments in there, or a whole bunch of observations or data points. What does this tell me? It allows you to get rid of some of those manual tedious things that may have been done by an intern or a junior person. Now, hopefully we still hire those individuals and give them something more exciting to do. Benefits, it just allows you to ask all types of different questions, all types of different scenarios, probably some things that you were never capable of doing manually. Allows you to get some of those answers and still try and get better insights on what's going on. Allows you to bring in all types of different data sets. You can start adding things from, operational performance to manufacturing performance to EHS performance, trends in the local community, hiring practices, salaries. You can pull all these types of things together to answer some questions. Again, some of the biggest challenges is just having good, high quality data. The term I try and use a lot is if we're going to use this type of technology to its maximum, we need to get professional finance grade data into our EHS systems. And that's not something that we've had a history with, and we may be able to utilize the help from other industries to make that happen. And in general, a lot of these technologies are starting to be used or have been used for a long time in other parts of your organization, and they're just slowly getting to the EHS function. So utilize people within your organization that have this type of knowledge and insight and experience to make sure that you set up your systems as best as possible. And poor data, poor prompts are going to give you poor outputs. So we talked about the first two. The first one is performing tasks using AI. The second is learning from data based on AI. And now we're going to move into something that I have a little bit more experience with. So for some of you, you've seen our computer vision that allows you to take a monocular, mobile phone, take a video, and it will superimpose a skeleton on top of that person, measure all their movements, send all that raw data up to the cloud, do some processing, and conduct the most comprehensive MSD risk assessment in the market. Errors, I think I posted on LinkedIn yesterday, the errors and joint angles are between 2 and 3 degrees, way better than anything I could have done, way better than anything I could do with hours of assessment. And just to let you know, we came across this technology more than 11 years ago. All right, so the speed at which these things are starting to get into the market are much faster now than it was 11 years ago. It was commercialized in 2017, 2018. But for some organizations, this type of work is completely brand new. They've never seen it before, but it is well tested, lots of research that's been done on it. And what it does is just helps you detect hazards and meet some of those compliance related items in real time, sorry. So this is all about seeing things in the workplace when you don't have lots of sets of eyes. I've seen examples where we'll have computer vision inside of facilities, monitoring what they perceive to be high traffic areas or high risk areas, and they monitor how many times there is a high risk situation. It's a little bit funny because if you have to put the cameras in the high risk or high hazard areas, you've already identified those areas. Why do we have to continue to monitor them? Maybe to get a better understanding of the problem, but you already know where the problem is where we have that intersection where there's been 5 accidents in the last 3 months. So this computer vision can help you do things really, really fast. It really democratizes the ability to conduct MSD risk assessments, the area that I'm familiar with only 600, 700 certified professional ergonomists in the world. That means there's less than one for every Fortune 1000 organization in general, which means you have to have this type of technology to scale your assessment process. Um, so what this allows you to do is get stuff done faster. Like for someone like myself to conduct 100 MSD risk assessments at a facility, back in 2000, it would have taken me months. Now that takes hours. So you can really get after this data. The cost of this type of stuff is pretty small. I'm sure that there's some companies spinning up their own versions of this, and there's a lot of software and hardware available to make this happen. Benefits, you get the proactive risk reduction, risk prevention. You can just do a lot more faster. Integrate with wearables. So wearables are very popular in certain industries such as, warehousing or baggage handling or healthcare, transportation, where computer vision may not be super helpful, but you can also integrate those. One of the biggest challenges, at least globally, is privacy. You're starting to take a video of a human being. All right, so it's not a pipe or a chemical. It's a person, and that person has facial features, and they have personal identifiable information such as their heights and their weight and what they look like. So it's very important to make sure you follow all those privacy rules and make sure that your employees are willing to adopt those types of initiatives. Data security is one of the biggest risks. When using computer vision, it does take quite a bit of time to make sure that all the security, legal, information technology, and privacy issues are addressed. So again, if you have any questions with regards to any of these, please write the number and the name and then write the question. We're going to have plenty of time at the end to address those questions. All right, number 4 is copy. Some of you may have heard this term digital twins. These are like replicas of physical environments, often used in process environments, chemicals, aluminum, all types of mining, to simulate operations, and then you can practice kind of safety scenarios. So what we want to do is create a new, I guess, safe environment where we can do all types of testing across all different scenarios or combinations of scenarios and see how a system responds and identifies where our breaking points are so we can start to put controls into those points and then go back and verify if those controls actually did work. So with regards to drivers, it's just to simulate high-risk scenarios, right? Things that used to take years might take months, or things that took months might take hours to simulate, and really allows you to get a better risk profile of your operations. One of the biggest benefits is that risk-free scenario testing. All right, so if you cause some damage in the digital twin world, it doesn't have any negative impact. So the opportunities are absolutely around emergency preparedness. Preparing for things that happen very infrequently but have extremely high risk profiles. Okay. Challenges, I mean, you've got to have people that have knowledge. Just think of nuclear control rooms. I grew up early in my career in the nuclear industry as a human factors engineer. In the United States, we have so few of those types of facilities. Just the knowledge and experience is basically very limited. And all of this discussion around, ramping up more and more nuclear facilities to support the energy demands for, these data centers, is going to be a challenge. And as we try and expand and do things that are more and more complex and have more and more value, the complexity of those systems increases. And probably in general in the US, we don't have enough experts to test all those scenarios. So it's very risky. Also, other things, all types of cybersecurity issues with this type of this analysis, privacy, security, those things as well. So those are concerns with regards to digital twins. Number five, connected. For years, the connected worker technologies, I think, had a lot of promise. I think we're maybe in a second wave where people are starting to think they might have cracked some of those nuts. But we have all types of devices that allow us to collect information. One of the major concerns with a lot of these types of connected devices is they're kind of single function. The whereabouts of my remote workers, or my physiological data that's coming from my wristband, or maybe monitoring the position of my shoulder, or monitoring a particular chemical. So there are a lot of point solutions, and when you start to try and build an overall solution that an employee would wear, it becomes, pretty unrealistic for someone to wear out all this. So I hope there is this trend towards going to an integrated where multiple things can be worn. I can see a day in the future that, I show up to work and I put on my uniform. As an employee, I have no idea of all these sensors that are in the uniform. They're all woven into the fabric of my clothing, and it monitors multiple different things for the particular work that I do. Okay. We're not there yet. Maybe in the healthcare space, we've done a bit of that, but in the worker space, we're not there yet. So number five is the connected, autonomous, and connected workers technologies. Um, some of the benefits or the drivers of this type of technology absolutely increases the efficiency of collecting all this data, minimizes errors, that you're just getting continuous monitoring of a particular variable. Now, a lot of times I ask the question, why do I need that much data? What's the value of having that continuous monitoring? And it gets back to that whole idea, like have a strategy. What is the problem that you're trying to measure rather than purchasing something that has the ability to measure something? Right? Automate some hazardous tasks, monitors workers' vitals, fatigue, location. I think the best one is, in the oil fields, gas fields, just having that remote worker monitoring, knowing where that human being is, and if they need help, the ability to give them that help as quickly as possible, locating them in different parts. Okay. The integration to robotics is very appealing as well. I've heard a lot about this. I haven't seen a lot of it in practice, but allowing the robot and the human to work kind of together throughout the whole process, not just on a task base, is something that's really becoming important. I think everyone's heard of things like exoskeletons. I think after years and years of research, we realized that shoulder exoskeleton is fantastic for sustained overhead work, and a back exoskeleton is fabulous for repetitive heavy lifting from the ground. And those are two of thousands of different tasks that are in the workplace. So it really focuses in on a very narrow subset of jobs and tasks within the work environment. Now, there's some great results in those two things, but we're probably looking for something to take it to that next level. Challenges, I know when exoskeletons first came out, the biggest reason why people didn't use them is they didn't like how they looked and all the ways that other people looked at them and the comments they would get. And it was just different and it was a little bit weird. So everyone was a little bit conscious of wearing these. And the cost to get these things started are pretty high, challenging to actually maintain. It's hard to scale. Again, if you got 10 locations across the world, like how do you get all the parts and storage and batteries and what happens if it breaks and is it in the 10 different languages? So there's a lot of upfront costs. Privacy is also a big one, as well as how it integrates with other areas of the operation. Okay. All right, the last one before we start moving on to some of the questions is collect, gathering more information, software that integrates work permits, risk assessments, things like lockout, tagout, lotto is a big issue. People love it when they have some type of easy way to manage lockout, tagout. So these control of work platforms are incredibly beneficial for a lot of organizations. It just gives everyone a complete understanding of where all the different things are happening, and we don't accidentally, create a scenario where two different things that shouldn't be happening at the same time happen. All right. So this one really addresses that top issue of reducing SIFs in the workplace, those serious injuries and fatalities. Absolutely reduces paperwork, improves that visibility of where work is being done and what type of work is being done. Integrates very well with contractor management, and at this time, there's a lot more contractor management stuff than before. And then lastly, the biggest issues is that resistance to change in an overall platform. So those are six issues that I've seen as the current trends in occupational health and safety. I think that back here. I think these are really important things to stay up on. I'm sure that people are thinking, well, why didn't you add this item, or why was that one in your top six? So each of these things are constantly evolving, but I think these are definitely six of the top 10 things that are out there, and hopefully I brought you some better understanding of the benefits, the opportunities, the challenges, the risks associated with each of those. All right. So kind of in summary, if you're taking this back to your business stakeholders, one of the things that we really want to do here is reduce incidents. We want to make sure that things are running faster and better, getting us those insights and foresights. An opportunity for this group here is to get your leadership and your organization ready for these types of technologies. I think I hear from a lot of different business stakeholders that technology is the solution. I can't think that could be further from the truth. Most people fail to remember that technology, that definition is the application of scientific information to solve a problem. That's what technology is. A pen and a paper is technology. If you have good processes, good data, I can guarantee things done on paper and pen or Excel or Word work because they worked for decades. The technology side of it allows us to be more efficient, possibly more effective, streamline it, get more done, but it still needs a solid foundation of data, governance, process, strategic insights, and people. And it involves people, and people are unique. They have all types of quirks, and it needs to match your culture. All right. So what we need to do is make sure we start to educate our organizations on these types of technologies that are coming through. What are the benefits, some of the risks? What's the opportunities? What are the challenges? What should we do first rather than randomly going around and seeking for different types of technologies? All right, I think we're coming pretty close to the end of the presentation slide. I'm going to turn off my camera for a second because my dog is staring at us. And I have to let her out the door as many of us are working from home. And so maybe it's an opportunity for Jacqueline. I mean, Jacqueline, you've heard this for the first time, and you've got many years of experience. Any particular thoughts that you have on what you heard, or maybe even any priorities of the data that you saw?
Um, no, but actually, yes. What I find consistent, and just to give everybody else some insight, so what I do is I work with some of our Velocity EHS solutions, and I talk to a lot of organizations pre-software ergonomics technology just about business problems. So a lot of times, organizations, large or small, unique types of manufacturing, come with a problem and say, we just have one safety metric that's identified that we have an ergonomics gap. But I love that and you put an emphasis on technology or AI using motion capture, machine learning, computer vision to solve ergonomics problems isn't necessarily the solution. We need to have a foundation. That foundation is really what helps businesses solve problems, get buy-in from multiple groups, communicate value to others in the organization, and expand. So I really like that you put emphasis on the AI isn't the finish line and it's not necessarily just the solution, but it helps take a current problem or process and maybe we used a single metric to identify that there was an ergonomics gap to then say let's use AI to increase efficiency to streamline so that all locations have the same understanding of what's expected of them and have similar quote unquote outcomes and then we can standardize processes in order to grow and expand. So I love that that was an area of focus that's pretty consistent with what I hear from customers or others in manufacturing environments.
Great. Thanks, Jacqueline. That's a great insight. Process still matters. Technology is a tool. And, buying a laptop didn't make me any smarter. Just allowed me to type things faster and do some more word processing and data processing quicker. So it is a tool that when used effectively can create some great outcomes. All right, Kay, you might have some questions for us. Are you ready with a few?
I am ready with a few. Thanks to you both. Looks like we have about 15 or a little bit more minutes left for questions. Just a reminder, if you'd like to ask a question, please send it through the chat window. The first question I have is, do you all have any good tips on things to look for when trying to make the business case of moving forward with software or tools? And how do you like reduce the noise?
All right. So if I heard you correctly, it was how do you make the business case? Is that correct?
Correct.
So one of the things that I always recommend when making the business case is understanding first what your organization uh, prioritizes, what it feels are opportunities, what it feels are risks. So if you are a publicly traded organization and your organization is from the US, you'll have to publish what is called an SEC Form 10 report on an annual basis. So it's basically identifying all your risks and opportunities and priorities in that report. Now, if you're not one of those organizations, you might even publish your own report that's not within that standard, or maybe even a sustainability report. Within those reports, it will tell you what your leadership thinks is important. I always recommend trying to align your EHS initiative to one of those already established high priority uh, high priorities and opportunities. It's easier to tag that on than to try to build from the start. Um, Search for others within your organization to help drive this. So I think one of the biggest mistakes that we make as EHS professionals is we only communicate the value of what we're trying to do in the language of EHS professionals, meaning in costs and injuries or fatalities, those EHS metrics. Bring it outside of that world a little bit. Engage with other people in operations or research or HR or legal or finance. It's better to have two or three different departments asking for a certain initiative rather than having one. And then the last one is always trying to translate it into the metrics that those individuals value. Now, you may value risk and risk reduction and reducing injuries and reducing deaths and fatalities, but that business stakeholder, the person in finance who's going to give you the money to invest, cares about dollars and cents and return on investment. It's an opportunity to increase your business acumen, learning about like IRR and different types of payback period ways, and really trying to align what you're trying to accomplish to the overall goal of the business. And the overall goal of any business is to be sustainable and generate revenues that are more than their costs. And then also trying to align it with other priorities they have. Also look for risks within your organization. If they are telling you that the biggest risk in the whole organization is something to do with chemicals that you process and dispose of, latch on to that. You're probably going to have a better opportunity to get that. So how to get the business to buy into your ideas is first to understand the business and what they feel is important, and then try to align what you want to do with something that's already um, initiated and communicated in the language that they understand.
And one thing to add to that, I work with a lot of current customers that are, let's say, that could be small single size organization or large global organization that has 50 plus locations, for example. And sometimes the other challenges is that the small group, the HSE group, the Ergonomics Initiative group, engineers, whoever it is that we're working with to create this business case, that's oftentimes what I'm supporting groups with, is they're trying to also educate the
Mhm.
why behind this is the solution. So some things that work really well for them are to use their own company specific examples, use their language when they're talking to leaders, and talk always in terms of return and show that you have a plan. So, for example, we will do trials or examples of, hey, you know what, we knew that this job is a problem. If we use software, this is how we could streamline our corrective actions. That's also a way to speak to your leadership, not in just terms of, hey, this is new exciting technology that we're showing you here on our company letterhead, but you could say, this is a company specific example. In a day, I was able to do this, walk through corrective actions, come up with the right change, talk to engineers and show them, and kind of like Blake said, communicate in their language. What might be really valuable and important to EHS might not be as high value to an engineer. So when I'm speaking to those teams, I say, if we make a change to this job or this work, we could save 15 to 20 seconds in that cycle time. That's my way of getting buy-in from those teams. But if you go
Mhm.
with a action plan, use their specific examples and show leadership that, it also shows that you've thought through application of the technology, and that also helps get buy-in in your business case.
Mhm. I think those are some great points, Jacqueline. And I'll just add one other, and this is a conversation I had a few weeks ago at a national conference, and I've had this conversation many times with organizations. Um, an experienced um, safety professional came in and stopped by and talking about how they had great success at reducing ergonomics related injuries and costs, and they've done a great job and they've met most of their metrics. And I said, well, how does your organization feel about this? And I they have a great set of leaders because they asked this question. They said, "Oh, this is great. Since we've reduced all the injuries and the cost, or majority of them, let's go ahead and shut down the program because we've actually solved the problem." And I think this is a mistake that a lot of people make, is if you frame EHS only in the language and priorities of EHS, when you achieve that goal, the organization no longer feels it's necessary. So I've seen that happen multiple times. Company comes with a problem, you address the problem, get it down to a baseline that seemed to be acceptable. They I guess, argued their whole entire case was based off cost and injuries. And when they went down, they're like, I don't need this anymore. And they should have been building their case around risk reduction, return on investment, and business impact. So it's a good lesson. All right, Kay, next one.
Great, thank you. Next one I have is if our organization is just starting to use newer technologies, what's the best way to introduce them to workers and encourage adoption?
So again, try and figure out what's your biggest problems. What are your number one, two, and three problems across your whole space that you have some level of ownership for? Focus on those. I would then say, go to the people and ask them, do you still think these are the biggest problems? Our data thinks it is. What else can I learn from those operators, the world's experts on doing the job, and the people that spend more time in your facilities than anyone else? Are these still the right three things? And then start asking them, hey, here's a possibility of things that we could do. Which ones would you prioritize as being higher? Which ones would you prioritize as being lower? Why do you like that one rather than you like this one? If we were going to try one, which one would it be? Would you be willing to try? Would you help me set up what the criteria would be for assessing this? What would good look like? And getting them engaged. I mean, employee engagement is like the most overlooked thing that we do. Um, the answers are usually always in their heads. We just fail to ask them. And so get those employees engaged in the whole entire process. You're going to get more buy-in. They're going to help you pick out the right thing. Um, I can probably tell you over the last 25 years, every time that I go into a facility, I'll ask the EHS professional, do you have a lifting device in here that you think might be tied off to a beam because no one's using it? And I'll usually make some type of small bet around that. And I've never lost that bet before. So here is a phenomenal solution that has been marketed to solve your problem. However, employees don't like to use it because it takes more time. It's awkward to use. So we introduced a solution that actually made the problem worse. So get them engaged. They have a tremendous amount of insights to share. Jacqueline, you've been in a lot of sites. What do you see?
The other thing I will say, I've been in many sites, but I've been an operator, and that's probably where the most valuable experience came from for me. So when I was in automotive assembly, before you start working anywhere else in the plant, they have you work on the line first, which is only fair. If I'm gonna understand the challenges of physical work before I redesign other people's jobs, I should probably understand how difficult they are myself. So I was in all areas of trim, chassis assembly, final car and inspection, and some of the work is pretty physical and pretty difficult. But I found that whenever people would approach me, and imagine somebody approaching you with this new technology or with a camera or some sort of device, if I don't understand the why, not only am I nervous to help you, I'm thinking I have to do the job different than I usually do it. I'm probably not following standard operating procedure. So I'm afraid. So I find what really helps with engagement as well as just adoption, your employees don't just provide you the best ideas and recommendations, they act as advocates for this change across the line or in the area of operations with other workers. So in order to get their buy-in, they need to understand the why. So when we introduce this ergonomics technology, for example, I tell people that even though we're taking videos, it's essential to have that communication with the operator to make sure I film the right thing. So I usually go over and say, I understand that this work's difficult. I'm only here and filming you because I want to learn from your experience where some of the problems are and to see how we can improve it together. I want your feedback and I want your input. So that gives them a chance to be advocates for change, to be buy into this process, and then to tell others when you leave after that interview, hey, they actually came to help us. And 6 months later, let's say they worked on a project and they did make a change. So I find that super helpful is any sort of training awareness, help them understand the why and that you're not going to make changes without them and you want to do this together with them.
Yeah, those are great points. And maybe the last one to add to that is you actually have to make a change. Like so
You
many
got to stick.
times,
Yeah.
uh, I'll go to do a data collection. They're like, "Huh, again?" I'm like, "What do you mean
Yeah.
again?" Oh no, like we've had this done a couple more times, like, and nothing's done. Like, and they give you that look like, why should I waste my time talking to you? Because I don't have the 2 hours to help you through this data collection. I told someone 2 times ago and 3 times ago, and nothing changes. So be that person that starts the change in the organization. So, all right, Kay, do we have time for one more?
We do. Next question is, what if the AI makes a mistake? How can I rely on something when I don't see what is involved in the conclusions?
All right, so great question. Then the question I have back for you, what happens if the human makes the mistake? Right? We all make mistakes, okay? Like AI is not perfect, and nor has any of your employees before you in the HS function been perfect. We all make mistakes. We're all trying to do the right thing. And I think it points out what I said earlier in the presentation as you have to have people within your function that know when it did make a mistake and then figure out why. With regards to the technology, any good technology is going to be more than happy to tell you how it calculates what it's calculating. Now, you may not need to know the model of, AI data set and some function A, B, and C, but if you're doing a risk assessment, you should absolutely know, how often does it collect the data? Why does it collect the data this way? What's the thresholds? How do you make a decision? That transparency is absolutely necessary. And when you evaluate a technology, you should be asking all of those questions because someone had to make a decision to tell the technology what to do, right? So they should be able to share that with you. If they don't, you might have some questions. Now, with regards to it being perfect, it's not going to be, and you need to know how to see when it's not perfect. I think that's a good answer. Jacqueline?
Yeah. One thing I like to say when that question comes up often, so AI may not be perfect, but some of the mistakes that we make as humans could also, it's just that massive subjectivity component. So
Yeah.
5 people, and there'll be times I'll be totally transparent with everyone on the call. I am a certified ergonomist. I've got experience. I have a master's affiliate degree in ergonomics, and there'd be times I'd do an assessment with a partner, paper-based tool. We'd look at the exact same job and we'd have different results at the end because maybe someone had a little bit more ergonomics experience or experience with that tool, and we'd bicker about our results at the end. So the benefit of motion capture is just standardizing the assessments and how we get those results. So if you had 5 employees of very different levels in your business, let's say an operator, let's say a supervisor, let's say someone in leadership, if 5 people took the exact same video that was processed with computer vision, they'd have the same score and same number. So that's also where the value of machine learning comes in, because we forget about that subjectivity component where my experience or interpretation of the challenges in work could be very different than somebody
Mhm.
else's. And that's why the margin for error in AI is very different than the margin for error that humans allow. So those are things
Yeah.
to consider too.
And maybe lastly, humans' acceptance of other humans making mistakes is big. We're okay with it. Humans' acceptance of AI or machines making mistakes is very tiny. For decades, for decades in the ergonomics research world, they would have paper after paper showing, at best, if you got a group of ergonomists together, there would be about 50 to 60% alignment on an individual MSD risk assessment. 50 to 60%. That was okay. When we came out with AI for very early on, we had like 10% errors and people were very disappointed. And like, so the expectations are much higher in machineries and AI, but it does move the needle and it does give us very close to perfection. Right, Kay, I think we're probably close to the end. You probably need to wrap up, but if you do have a
Uh,
short question, I'm happy to answer.
Yep, we have just a minute or two left. A
Okay.
comment came into the chat in case you all wanted to respond.
Yeah.
Susan says, my observation is that OEHS problems are an indicator. When they're present, there will be quality and HR issues also. So you could try to sell the AI usage benefit beyond OEHS.
100%. This person may have been to one of my sessions before because I always tell people the quickest way to find an ergonomics issue is go talk to your quality manager. 4 out of every 5 quality issues, the root cause of that is some type of mismatch between the human capability and what they're asking the person to do. It is the easiest way to find out where your high potential targets are. I mean, talking to your operator is a good way. Going to talk to your quality person is a slam dunk. Jacqueline, anything else to add to that one?
No, I think that's perfect. Exactly what I would have said.
Okay, great. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. My thanks to Blake McGowan and Jacqueline Faraci for their presentation, to Velocity EHS for sponsoring today's webinar, and to all of our participants. Please check aiha.webvent.tv for announcements of upcoming Synergist webinars or to view recordings of previous ones. Our next scheduled event is a product demo on noise dosimetry that will take place on April 28th. Hope everyone has a great day.